The film starts with a beautiful view of a mountain range. We see a couple, Becky and Dan, happily climbing together. They're newlyweds who share a love for mountain climbing, though their bold spirit sometimes leads them into risky situations. They're joined by Becky's friend, who also enjoys a thrill. The three of them often find themselves in dangerous positions. While climbing one day, Dan accidentally brushes against a bird's nest. Startled, the bird flies off, causing Dan to lose his balance. He's left hanging from a rope, unable to climb back up. Despite Becky and her friends' desperate efforts to rescue him, Dan falls and tragically dies. Fast forward a year, and we find Becky still hurting deeply. She clings to Dan's ashes and turns to drinking to cope, her life collapsing. Her father is truly worried about her and decides to reach out to Hunter, Dan's old climbing buddy, hoping she can help. Hunter, who used to climb mountains with Becky and Dan, meets her after a long break. She suggests going on a new climbing journey to lift Becky's mood. Hunter suggests visiting an old 2,000-foot-tall tower in the desert, where Becky can scatter Dan's ashes. She thinks this will help Becky find closure and bring peace to Dan's soul. After much thought, Becky agrees to the trip. Eager for a change and to respect Dan's memory, she and Hunter set off on their trip together. During their trip, Becky and Hunter have a great time, capturing moments with their phones and filming movies. However, their trip nearly turns dangerous when a fast truck comes close to hitting them. They manage to stop their car just in time, pleased but shaken, and continue on their way. When they reach their goal, Hunter sees a dead goat being scavenged by birds. She snaps a shot of the scene and shares it on Instagram before they continue. At the old tower, Hunter films as they approach it. The tower's enormous height initially intimidates Becky, but Hunter reassures her. She prepares their climbing gear, securing both herself and Becky before they start their journey. As they climb, the old broken tower and creaky steps upset Becky, but she pushes through her fear. Hunter urges her, noting that they've hit the halfway point, about 1,000 feet up, which is the same height as the Eiffel Tower. The wind is strong at this height, and as they climb, Becky feels nervous looking down. Hunter jokingly shakes the stairs, making Becky even more nervous. Despite this, they move on. Reaching the top, they celebrate their success. However, while they're focused on their joy and Hunter's drone camera recording the moment, they don't notice that a key stair bolt has broken. Becky and Hunter, thrilled by their trip, take turns swinging from the tower and snapping pictures. Despite her initial fear, Becky overcomes it and joins Hunter in the risky picture op. They both take a moment to hug, and Becky spreads her husband's ashes, feeling a small sense of relief. They reflect on their loss, missing him deeply. As they finish their climb and prepare to head back, they face a problem. One of the rusty stairs has broken. Becky is left hanging dangerously, but Hunter manages to pull her up. Their bags, which include their drone and supplies, are now hanging from the tower's antenna, out of reach. Becky starts to worry, realizing they're cut off from their gear and can't get a signal on their phones. While searching the tower for answers, they find a flare gun and a microscope. Hunter dismisses the flare gun as useless, and Becky sees to an injury on her leg. They finish their vlogs and wait for help, hoping for a miracle. A few hours later, Hunter spots a faraway car through the lens but can't call for help. Checking her phone, she sees that her recent post has gotten many likes and comments, suggesting there was signal access earlier. Hunter writes a panic message and tries to post it. She ties her phone to a rope and lowers it in hopes of linking with a signal, but it still doesn't work. Determined, Hunter decides to lower the phone further, hoping it will finally get a signal and her following will come to their aid. Hunter's efforts to post their distress message fail, so she chooses to take a more dramatic step. She wraps her phone in socks and then puts it inside her shoe to lessen the fall. Hoping the phone will catch a signal when it hits the ground, she throws it down. She then watches through the lens and spots a man with a dog who is on the phone. Becky throws her shoe down, hoping to catch his attention, but he doesn't notice and leaves the area. Becky is about to use the flare gun, but Hunter stops her, suggesting they wait until sunset. She thinks someone will come to help them by then. As night falls, Becky watches their video on the phone to pass the time and sees something odd. Hunter seems to be looking at her and her late husband in a strange way. Hunter finally pushes Becky to fire the flare gun. As Becky turns on her phone's flashlight and begins to spin it, two guys spot them. Unfortunately, they can't help and are unable to see them clearly due to their height. Instead, they steal their car, leaving the two women stuck. That night, while trying to sleep, Hunter nearly falls off the tower, but Becky saves her. During this, Becky sees a tattoo on Hunter's leg with the numbers 143. She remembers that her husband used to reply 143 whenever she said, "I love you." This news hits Becky hard, and she realizes Hunter and her husband must have had a connection. Hunter, having no other choice, reveals everything to Becky. Becky is shocked and hurt, but Hunter apologizes truly. Meanwhile, Becky sees their bag, which holds the drone and a water bottle. Hunter chooses to collect it, setting up hooks around the tower and connecting herself to a rope. Despite her efforts, she can't quite reach the bag. Determined, Hunter makes a bold move, jumping from the rope to climb the tower. She successfully grabs the bag, despite the rope being out of reach. After finding her selfie stick and tying a line to the bag, Hunter makes a bold attempt to climb the tower. She jumps and grabs the rope, but it slips from her hold, causing her to fall. Seeing this, Becky is distraught and starts crying. She looks down and sees Hunter hanging dangerously, her hands hurt and unable to climb back up. Desperate, Becky uses all her strength to pull Hunter up and finally manages to rescue her. They take a moment to drink some water and write a note, attaching it to the drone. They try to send the message, but the drone's battery dies mid-flight, causing them to bring it back. That night, Becky dreams that Hunter has died and birds are feeding on her body. When she wakes up, she sees it was just a dream. Seeing a light on the tower gives her a new idea. She chooses to charge the drone's battery the next morning. Becky climbs up the tower to charge the drone, hanging there until it's ready. Once it's charged, she lowers, writes a new note, and links it to the drone. They send it, but the drone crashes into a car and breaks before it can reach its target. As they wait, their hope of help dwindles. Becky's health worsens, and she can no longer bear the situation. She asks Hunter for her shoe to throw her phone with a new note, as it seems to be their only choice. However, Hunter isn't there. She's already passed away from her fall. It's revealed that Hunter's appearance was just a product of Becky's mind, a way for her to deal with the isolation and fear. Looking down, Becky sees birds eating Hunter's body, realizing that her friend has truly died. Becky, filled with sadness, leaves a final message for her father, voicing her loss of hope and fear that she might not live. Another day passes, and as Becky's situation worsens, a bird approaches, drawn by the blood on her leg. In a frantic act of survival, Becky kills the bird and eats it raw, getting enough energy to continue. Meanwhile, her father is greatly worried and begins investigating her whereabouts. Determined, Becky musters her remaining bravery and prepares to drop from the structure. She puts her phone in Hunter's shoe, arranges it carefully, and apologizes to her friend before throwing it down, hoping the phone will survive the fall and reach her father. Hours later, Becky's father arrives near the tower and finds Hunter's body being taken away by the cops. He fears the worst, believing his daughter might have died. Just then, he hears Becky calling out "Dad," and is overcome with relief upon seeing her alive. They hug, and Becky's grit and drive are praised as she is finally saved. The film ends on a hopeful note, showing that Becky's grit and determination have saved her.